Are you planning to visit Ibadan for the first time? Ibadan is one of the most exciting cities in Nigeria. Today, I will show you how you can have amazing fun on a relatively small budget of 10,000 Naira on your next visit. I recently visited Ibadan with my friend Ruro, and the first place we went to when we arrived was the University of Ibadan Botanical Garden. It cost 1,000 Naira per person and it was a decent experience. When you first enter, there are a couple animals that I feel like have no business being in a zoo. Dogs, geese and the likes, and it was a bit disconcerting to figure out why they are behind bars essentially in a zoo. That was not the best thing to see when you first come into a zoo, but we soldiered on nonetheless. The University of Ibadan Zoo is one of the most talked about zoos in Nigeria, and it is a must visit for anybody that sojourns to the University of Ibadan. It goes without saying that this video is particularly geared towards first time Ibadan visitors. If you've been to Ibadan before, there's a high chance that you've been here, so just watch this video with the assumption that you've never been, probably a first timer in Nigeria. To be honest, a lot of the animals looked very depressed. Maybe it was the time of day, but I felt bad looking at them. They all looked tired, they all looked spent, and they looked like they did not want to be there. Obviously they do not want to be there, it's not their natural habitat, but this is why I do not like visiting zoos a lot. Next up, Ruro and I had a lot of catching up to do because we hadn't seen each other for a long time, so we found one of the concrete benches and sat there for a very long while, talking, catching up and just reminiscing, an impromptu therapy that we both needed. We continued across what I would consider a range of domestic animals being locked up. There was even an exhibition for domestic goats and cats. Once again, I do not know why, but I'm going to move on from this so it doesn't feel like this is a video created with the sole aim of attacking the University of Ibadan Botanical Garden or Zoo. We then went to the crocodile exhibition next, and it's crazy how stealth crocodiles are because I was looking at it for like 5 minutes and I did not notice that there was a crocodile right underneath my feet. The thought of meeting a crocodile in the wild is a very scary thought because I did not notice it for a long while. It blended perfectly into its environment. Next up, Ruro and I went into the snake exhibition after avoiding it for as much as possible, and snakes get a very bad rap, especially in this part of the world, and for a very good reason. But we went in, it felt a bit damp, the snakes were small, and for the most part they did not move. I can't lie to you, I tried my best to be done with this part of the visits as quickly as possible, and it's a dark space in a separate building, and each snake has its own, I would call it a box, but I don't want to call it a cell because it looks like that, but each snake has its own section with natural light where they can easily get access to the sun, obviously, to regulate that temperature and do what they need to do, snake business. And when we finally left there, it was an experience that I personally would not do again. I don't know about Ruro. So here is the now crocodile that was under my feet the whole time, and I did not notice it until a very long time after. Crocodiles are crazy, and I would not want to meet one in the wild after years of watching Nat Geo Wild. Next up, we went to the reptile section. A lot of these monkeys, macaques are tired and they looked angry. Monkeys are always they're a very angry bunch, and they always like to use their larger brains for mischievous activities. Next up, we went to the baboons. The baboons it was almost like they were praying for us to get closer so they could mess us up. And the baboons looked unwelcoming, and obviously they did not want to be there, so they would not welcome us. And the entire time he kept looking at me like, "Take to come closer." Like, bro, don't dare me, I won't come closer. Next up, we went to the ostrich section. It's not an ostrich section, but we saw ostriches and an ostrich, and we saw a giraffe, which is always nice to see. The ostrich was really pissed and he just kept running back and forth. And I think that's an emu or a cassowary, I'm not sure, but it's one of those big birds. And I feel like the scariest animals to me, even scarier than lions and tigers, are flightless birds, especially the massive ones, because what they lack in the ability to fly, they more than make up for it in their wickedness and evil spirits. Oh my god, even as a child in Nigeria, those large turkeys always bullied us whenever they saw you. It was like ops. When they saw you, it was on sight. So seeing an ostrich and I think it's a cassowary or an emu, and looking at how crazy and red their eyes were, I did my best to avoid them. Next up, there was a sole giraffe on site. I kept looking for a second giraffe, and if that's the only giraffe there, it's a sad reality for it because it has no friends. There's nobody that looks like it. I can only imagine what it would feel like. Unfortunately, we learned that the lion that they had previously is no longer alive, and for better or for worse, the lion has moved on, but we did not get to see a lion or any of the big cats for that matter. That's all from the University of Ibadan. Cost us 1,000 naira per person, but I'll be counting it as 1,000 towards the budget. Next up, we visited Veritas Mall, and the mall has an arcade. I opted to indulge in bowling while Ruro and I did a bit of Euro techno dancing on the machine. This is trying to make the most of it. The machine seems a bit old and you needed to really step on it really hard for it to show on the screen, and it was an amazing experience nonetheless. Unfortunately, at this point we had been outside all day and we had to make limited videos. Here I am again going for the bullseye. An amazing shot. Truth be told, I was really horrible at this, as this was just my second time bowling ever, and obviously I would show you the best of the best. I'm not going to show you the ones where I struck out multiple times. That being said, it was an amazing experience and it cost 6,000 naira for everything we did for the both of us. I don't really remember the breakdown, but I'll just go with 3,000 per person at this point. Our next visit was to Bawas Tower. In keeping up with our adventurous spirit and our adventurous vibe for this trip, we decided to raw dog it and used minimal navigation getting there. We got a bike from our accommodation and we tried to get to the spot. We didn't tell him we were going to Bawas Tower, we just described the general area we were going to. And where he dropped us was very close to the Olubadan's palace, and we had to hike up a very strenuous tip. Looking back, could have easily just used the maps and seen that they were alternative routes, but we walked up this and it took a lot out of us because it had been a very stressful day and we had walked a lot across the city. So after what must have felt like 4 hours of hiking up that stretch, we finally got to the road and realized that there is an actual road leading up to Bawas Tower. Of course there is. Why wouldn't there be? How else would people get here? And we looked back and saw that all that work was for nothing. Approaching Bawas Tower was a familiar feeling because in Nigeria, a lot of our tourist centers are either far from major populations or poorly maintained, and although this is in the middle of a city, it's still very evident that there's a lot that needs to go into Bawas Tower to make it a proper attraction. At the entrance, we had to pay, if I remember correctly, I think 1,000 naira each, and of course it wasn't to an official account, it was to someone's personal account. You know, it's easier to just comport and ask no questions in Nigeria. So after paying 1,000 naira per person, we got a tour guide, even though we did not need one, but they were like it by force, and we had to give him money. And I think I gave him 1,500 or 2,000. Let's just say 2,000 per person at the end of the day for me and Ruro. Bawas Tower was built in honor of a former British general or something. I don't know. I could care less. The moment I found out that he was not Nigerian, I was like, good old white savior. The tower itself had a very narrow tip up it, and if you are fatter than the average person, it would take a lot for you to get up. And even it took a lot for me to get up while trying to video. So I gave up halfway through, and my clothes had basically turned into a mop or a rag because I just kept smashing into the walls trying to make my way up. The view from the tower was amazing, and I'm sorry that I couldn't get you better angles and better picture quality. I had to change the camera when we got up there, but the view of Ibadan from the top of the tower was second to none, or is second to none in my opinion. You could see the Olubadan's palace, you could see Cocoa House, you could see UCH, University of Ibadan Teaching Hospital, and you could just grasp how vast of a city Ibadan is and why it is West Africa's largest city by landmass. I also went around the tower to get a better understanding of it, and from this vantage point, the tower's usefulness is very obvious precious, because imagine me being able to see this in present day with all the development. It will have been more useful in the past, where there were minimal buildings and infrastructure to block your view. Only God knows how vast the view could have been, or the view was in the past. The design itself was very convoluted and obviously not built for people in the 21st century, because it was a very claustrophobic climb up, I'm not gonna lie to you. And I've never really been a big fan of spiral staircases to begin with. While we were there was a group, I think they were about 20 to 30 people. They were partying a bit and playing games. They were playing music very loud, and I have no problem with that, but I can't play the actual audio from this video because a lot of the songs are copyrighted from famous Nigerian artists. After spending a while up there, I came down and I took what I felt were like very cinematic shots of tower from the outside, but unfortunately my gimbal kept poking through the footage and I did not know until later. Without a doubt, Bowers Tower is a must visit. I just feel like it leaves much to be desired, because once you get there and you've been up there, probably if you came with friends, there really is nothing much to do after that. Somewhere that you can be in and out in 10 minutes if you really have somewhere to be, and that might be ideal for some people, but I strongly believe that more could be done to make Bowers Tower a more attractive space for not just visitors but for Ibadan people. It can be somewhere that people go to chill on the weekends or public holidays and the likes. But that being said, it was an amazing experience, and if it's your first time in Ibadan or you've never been to Ibadan, you definitely need to visit Bowers Tower. On the way out, we used the actual road that we were supposed to use, and the views from there was still amazing. 10 out of 10. It looks beautiful, it is beautiful, and it is a view that you should strive to witness and enjoy at least once in your life. Bowers Tower cost us 2,000 naira per person, so far we're still on budget and we're still on track to experience as many attractions as possible in Ibadan on a budget of 10,000 naira or less. Ibadan is a gift that keeps on giving. During my research, I found out that Ibadan actually has a sizable water body within the city limits. Looking on the map, it beats all common sense. Ibadan is not close to the ocean and doesn't have a major water body running through it, or at least I thought. Our next location is Eleyele Lake, and it is within the city proper. It's not like you're going to a neighboring town or a neighboring settlement. When we got there, getting there was a bit hard because the sun was crazy at that time of the year. We got a bike, it took us past the place, and then we just kept walking back, asking people using Google Maps, and finally we got here. Eleyele Lake is an amazing place to visit. If you're a fan of water sports, then you should visit here. There are boat rides, kayaking, I think speedboat rides, and a lot. Personally, I cannot swim and I'm currently very scared of open water bodies, even closed water bodies, to be honest. I elected not to. I think low-key Ruro wanted to indulge, but because I wasn't, she decided not to also. It's an amazing experience, and I have seen content from people that actually were on these boats and kayaked, and it's wonderful. But my fear outweighed my willingness to have fun. And doesn't it look fun? It actually looks proper fun. And if you are visiting and you are so inclined, definitely need to indulge in all the gifts and all the wonders that Eleyele Lake has to offer. When we got there, we indulged in their on-site restaurant. There were a lot of vendors. There was suya, asun, drinks, both alcoholic, non-alcoholic. You could have noodles, and there was literally a lot. So Ruru and I decided to have I think our first meal of the day. We got asun, I think chicken and chips and something else. So Eleyele Lake is somewhere that can cost you a lot, especially if you want to indulge in the activities. But there's nothing stopping you from coming here, buying a chivita or two, and just watching everything go on around you. It's an amazing vibe. It's like living in a major coastal town like Lagos and just enjoying the activities happening on the beach. It feels kind of like that. It's a bit unknown or little known among a lot of people, and when I found out during my research, I was still skeptical. Definitely need to visit Eleyele Lake on your next visit to Ibadan. For the sake of this video, and it might be cheating a bit, I'm going to put this as 2,000 naira because that was what it cost us to get there. Was that what it cost us to get there? I think it was. And you are not obliged to do anything like go on the boat rides and the like. So you can just get there, spend the minimum amount necessary, maybe buy a drink, just chill, which in itself is why we're here. On our final day in Ibadan, I decided to visit Agodi Gardens alone. It was on a Sunday morning and Roro had to go somewhere. I forgot where she had to go. And she had been here before, if we're being honest. So I went to Agodi Gardens. It's a very chill spot, I'm not gonna lie. It's giving what it needs to give. Wow, I sound like such a Gen Z. It's giving what it needs to give. From the entrance, you needed to pay an entrance fee of 1,000 naira, and they were kind enough. We had our traveling bags, or I had our traveling bags with us, because for me, we were going to the train station, and they gave us a place to keep it close to the entrance. For 1,000 naira, you can get in. There are a lot of adjacent businesses within it that you can indulge in. I think there's even a club or a lounge somewhere there. But I just wanted to see what Agodi Gardens had to offer while I waited for time to pass. Seeing is believing, and if you are seeing what I'm saying on this screen, you would attest to the fact that Agodi Gardens is a must visit for anyone that wants to connect with nature and have a grand old time without spending a fortune. I think to swim at Agodi Gardens cost 1,000 naira, but I wasn't interested in swimming. Not that I'm scared of the water, it was very shallow, but it actually started raining while I was here, and you can see how dark the skies are, or the clouds are. After a few hours of waiting, Roro finally called me that she was ready, and then she went to the train station, while I, on the other hand, had to find my way from here. Ibadan boat riders are notorious for always trying to renegotiate and give you unfavorable deals. I think Uber and boats. So I ended up going with a bike, and it was a very long trip. It makes no sense why the train stations to Ibadan are so far from the city. I mean, it beats all common sense, but what do I know? So that's it. For less than 10,000 naira, you can visit Ibadan this weekend for the first time or your next time. And if you haven't done all this, you can have the time of your life. There are also other activities that wouldn't cost you a lot of money. And I've given you 5 activities to start your itinerary, to build your itinerary around. Feel free to go onto the internet, speak to friends, go to wherever you need to build your full itinerary. You do not have to spend a fortune while traveling, especially within your country.